It is an epic family drama playing out in a courtroom in Utah. The two daughters of Martin MacNeill are accusing him of murdering their mom. And today, the other woman took the stand. The big question here is, was Gypsy Willis just Martin MacNeill's mistress, or was she the reason he allegedly killed his wife? Here's ABC's Aditi Roy with the latest edition of our series, Crime and Punishment.
When she walked into the Utah courthouse today, Gypsy Willis was the center of attention.
Ms. Willis, if you'll come forward to the clerk's desk.
And she didn't shrink from the cameras when it was time to take the stand.
My name is Gypsy Willis.
And give some of the most anticipated testimony of the Martin MacNeill trial, coming face to face with the man she says was once her lover.
How do you know the defendant?
We were involved a number of years ago.
In a relationship?
Yes.
According to investigators, a 37-year-old nurse practitioner was MacNeill's mistress and a key reason MacNeill killed his wife.
She is a woman that is driven, and probably driven in the wrong direction most of the time. I truly believe that she believed that she could control men by an aura about her.
Prosecutors claim MacNeill over-medicated his wife while she was recovering from plastic surgery that he insisted she have. His goal? To kill her and continue his affair with Gypsy. Defense attorneys say Michelle died of natural causes.
And how did you meet?
We met online.
That was a year and a half before Michelle's death. Gypsy testified that over time, their relationship became more heated.
Okay. Did the relationship become sexual?
It did.
And when was that?
I think that was in January of 2006.
And how often were the two of you having sexual relations?
We would see each other about a couple times a month.
And just a month before Michelle's death, she says Martin was even paying for some of her expenses. It was a turning point in their relationship.
So in March of 2007, you move into a duplex in Lehigh.
That's correct.
You're closer to the defendant.
Yes.
And who's paying for this duplex?
Martin already had a contract on that property.
So he's paying for the housing there?
Yes.
And did he give you a debit card to use for personal expenses?
Yes.
They communicated frequently, and according to the prosecution, even exchanged calls on the day of Michelle's death and 15 texts on the day of her funeral, a funeral Gypsy attended.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
And where she and Martin pretended to meet for the first time.
My father said, oh, thank you. What's your name? I'm sorry. She said, oh, my name is Jillian.
But this was not the first time Martin's daughters had heard of Gypsy Jillian Willis. Just weeks before her mother's death, Alexis says Michelle had been suspicious that Martin was having an affair, and so she asked her to do some late-night investigating.
While he was sleeping, I went online and printed out all of his phone records. And we found this number that he'd been calling a lot.
A number being dialed day and night. Alexis did an online search.
And it popped out the name of the person.
And it was?
Gypsy Jillian Willis. And my mom was like, who's this? I mean, we thought it was maybe some like stripper or something. Who's named Gypsy?
In 2011, Alexis told Elizabeth Vargas that Michelle confronted Martin about the phone calls to the woman named Gypsy.
What did he say?
Oh, this was a nurse that he'd worked with, and she's actually going to be renting this property that they had leased. My mom said, well, why have you called her at 3 o'clock in the morning, all these strange hours? Oh, well, she works the night shifts. My mom wasn't happy with his answers. She really didn't believe him.
Did she follow up?
She died.
Then just a few weeks later, MacNeill hired Gypsy as the new live-in nanny to take care of the youngest of his children. Martin's daughters did not approve.
I said, Dad, Gypsy Jillian Willis, I said, I know that woman. I know Mom was worried you were having an affair with her, and you were not to bring her in the home.
He hired her anyway, and Martin's daughters say Gypsy paid little to no attention to the children. Her focus was elsewhere.
I expected her to be focused on the children. Okay. I expected her to do things related to that, to cook or clean or take care of the children.
And what did you see her doing?
My dad was cooking. She was sitting there staring at my dad. It just was obvious She's just goo eyes at my dad.
Martin's daughters immediately became uncomfortable with their new housemate.
She walked into the house like she owned the place. And then when I questioned my dad and said, what's going on? He said, oh, she's a guest in our home, and how dare you question me?
In fact, his daughters say Martin made it clear, given a choice between them and Gypsy, he chose Gypsy.
I was told that I needed to leave the home because I wasn't nice to Gypsy.
We were pushed out of the house by my dad. I didn't even have shoes on.
But if Gypsy wasn't a nanny, who was she? According to her own family, she was no angel.
I would consider Gypsy to be a deceptive, malevolent, malicious, calculating person.
They say Gypsy used to enjoy killing animals and even attacked her mother during an argument over a dog.
She lunged forward and she bit me, a bad bite. You could count every single tooth mark.
But Martin was captivated by Gypsy, traveling to Wyoming to meet her family shortly after Michelle's death.
He said, I never loved Michelle, but I loved Gypsy.
Martin didn't stop there. In front of her whole family, he proposed to Gypsy.
He gave this grand speech about how he loved her from the moment he saw her, and he knelt and proposed to her, and Gypsy cried. It was very fairy tale. In a bad way, they were perfect for each other.
Willis believes together, her sister and Martin were a dangerous combination.
Together, I believe that they are perfectly capable of killing Michelle. They're like a pack of dogs. One dog alone might be malicious, might take a nip out of things, but two dogs together hunting are lethal.
Investigators say the pair embarked upon a cruel and illegal plot to send Martin's 16-year-old adopted daughter Giselle back to Ukraine and keep her there so they could steal her identity and give it to Gypsy.
They went into court and changed the birth date, 20 years. That's called perjury.
With Giselle still in the Ukraine, investigators say the pair gathered fake IDs all over Utah using Giselle's name. They were eventually caught and both did time in federal prison. It was another piece of evidence that drove the daughters and investigators to suspect Martin in the death of his wife.
I don't know exactly what he did, but I do know he killed her.
It was just 1 month after being released from jail that Martin was arrested again, this time for murder. Now Gypsy is testifying for the prosecution and could be the key to Martin's fate. Defense attorneys say she was simply Martin's mistress and that the affair wasn't a motive for murder.
It was a very casual thing. It was just whenever we had time and it could be arranged.
Okay.
And it was...
Go ahead.
I think we probably had sex half the time. I mean, sometimes it was just lunch.
Gypsy is expected to be back on the stand on Tuesday, giving more answers that could ultimately determine her former lover's future. For Nightline, Aditi Roy in Los Angeles.